Welcome back. My name is Izabela Kotyńska-Zielińska. I'm a coordinator of the I Live by the Sea project. Today we have a second webinar of the I Live by the Sea Summer School. School is organized by, today we have IOPAN and Gdynia Aquarium. Today we have Agnieszka Skorupa, psychologist, assistant professor at the Faculty of the Social Sciences of the University of Silesia in Katowice. Agnieszka explores broadly understood individual differences, in particular on human behavior in extreme situations. All the housekeeping rules are repeated in the chat box. Agnieszka, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you very much for invitation, and I hope that we will spend together really nice and productive time. As I was introduced, I'm the psychologist working on the University of Silesia, and my daily work is exploring people's behavior in extreme situations. So the situation with which we've been facing and going through. So the situation of isolation because of COVID-19 is a kind of extreme situation. And I would really love to talk with you or present you some psychological rules or some psychological tips which can be useful for you in these hard times. So I will present the topic like 45 minutes or 40 minutes. And on the end, there will be time for questions. So definitely, if you are interested in something, just let us know. I'm really open for all your ideas or doubts or anything you would like to share with us. So let's start and let's show the presentation. 1 minute. It should work. I hope so. Yeah, it is now. So today's topic is how to adapt. So we will be concentrated on psychological aspects of learning, working, and living in isolated times. How to adapt? You can think about this topic a little bit wider than only according to virus, to pandemia, because the adaptation to changing conditions will be required from us, I think, even more and more. But yeah, it should be slide about me, but I was mentioned before and introduced before by Izabela, so we can skip it. But let's concentrate on that. We are, as human beings, a unique part of the whole system, of the whole ecosystem, and we need other people and we need surrounding to function in optimal way. This is thing we cannot deny. Yeah? But on the other hand, we've got some specific features. So we've got some traits, like psychological traits, but we've got some abilities and skills which make us unique in the world of living creatures. And our uniqueness, on the one hand, is helping us because we can create really phenomenal things. But on the other hand, it can be even our handicap when it comes to isolation. And as I mentioned, we are analyzing this isolation and we are analyzing our behavior and pluses and minuses of being isolated because of pandemia of COVID-19. And I would like to invite you to together to do some like mental exercise about aspects of learning, working, and living in isolated times. whether it is hard or not, whether it is challenge or traumatized issue, or maybe it is not influencing you at all. So I would like to invite you to that we together will explore that topic in the light of psychology, because this is my field and this is field which I am really mostly interested in. For the beginning, let's have a thought about what isolation really means. Because when we are using this word a lot, we have our own experience of isolation. But what it really is, there are different types of isolation. Many people live till these days in isolated regions, in separate groups. For some people, the isolation is, like everyday bread. On the other hand, we can be in isolation, for example, in some accidents, in some unexpected situations in our lives. So I know that pandemia is something which was, which was very wide and many people experienced it. But in past times, we also used to be isolated in some way, in some situations. But if you can watch up these pictures, there are also people who explores word being isolated, explores word solitary. For example, climbers, mountain climbers, or some travelers, explorers, they do it and they are isolated. And there is a third group or fourth group even we can mention that people are functioning in isolation because this is their job. And it is a challenge, it's hard for them, but still they can cope with that, and it can be quite quite strong experience in their life which enrich them in some way. But we will come back to that. So there are really different types of isolation, and many people all over the world lives in isolation. But when we think about isolation, I like that expression from studies of space travelers and from studies from polar explorers, that we can distinguish ICE conditions. It means that we can be isolated, we can be confined, and we can find ourselves in extreme surroundings. So being isolated means that we are isolated socially. We cannot have so many social relations as we would like to have, as we wish to have. Being confined means that we are living our lives on limited space. So we do not have so many space that we would need to have. And our conditions of living can be also extreme. So it means that they can put challenge like physical challenge, health challenge, mental challenge on our way. And this ICE term is used to, as I mentioned, to polar explorers, to space explorers. But if you stop for a moment and have a second thought, these are conditions we experienced during the pandemic. So we've been isolated from another people. Okay, we have like this webinar, we have Skype, we have many communication platforms, we have webcams. Okay, that's cool, but it is not maybe it is not so effective as communication as it would be in different times, in different conditions. Many people were stuck in their homes or in some certain towns or in some certain part of world without possibility of living it. So we also felt confined and being jeopardized by virus, by having constantly in our mind the thought that we can, got sick, we can be ill, is also very, very extreme experience. So this is isolation, which I believe we experienced. And why? Why for people isolation? It's so difficult. It's challenge, but why? Why our psyche is constructed in that way that isolation it's not simple for us. First of all, humans are described as ultrasociable beings. It means that we really need another people to have optimum of our functioning. But we need these people in the way of emotional connection, but also in the way of physical connection. The possibility of being contacted physically with others is important on the bacterial level, even that, to improve our immunity system, but also it's important to feeling safe and loved by touching each other. So this is hard when suddenly our options of contact are really reduced, or even they are stopped. And okay, so we really are other sociable beings, but we all are different. We've got individual differences in our psych construction. So that's true for one people. For example, for extroverts people, it can be harder to be isolated, but for another people, for example, introverts, maybe it will be a little bit more easy. So the traits we have inside of our psyche, of our brain, they determine in some way, up to some point, our adaptation to hard conditions. But I don't like to stigmatize. So really, being extrovert and introvert, it means that extroverts they do not like low stimulation. They have hard time being isolated and deprived. But introverts, they have hard time being in sudden situations, noisy situations, so being in high stimulation. So as you can see, neither being extrovert nor being introvert is bad for everybody for all time, because we experience different situations. So different features, different traits can be adaptive in different occasions, on different occasions. So if you diagnose in yourself some certain traits like mental, like structure of your reactions, like your temperament, and you are worried that you can have, in somehow less profitable construction of psyche. So please remember that this is only temperamental risk factor. So it doesn't matter who I am, if I'm introvert or extrovert or melancholic or choleric. It means nothing. But it can create in some certain situation a risk factor. So it can be less profitable in this occasion. But it's not like that being good or bad all the time. But going further, people are really having hard time with sensor deprivation. So when we have when the stimulus are reduced, so we have no visual stimulus, no acoustic stimulus or sensor stimulus on our skins, it really do not do good job for us, because our mind and our brain, they start creating stimulus by themselves. Donald Hebb, who is on this picture, he was doing research on sensor deprivation, and it was even claimed to be one of the best torture method. So, sensor deprivation is really hard time for us. Of course, in some certain to some certain level, it can be also profitable. As you can see on this picture on the right, we, for example, are using from floating chambers. So, floating chamber is reduction of stimulus, but for a short time and in very controlled conditions. For many of us, isolation with COVID-19 caused uncontrolled reduction of stimulus, which really is hard experience. But our brain cannot stop processing data. This is construction of being human. Yeah? This is construction of ourselves. We cannot deny that. But when look on that picture, when we are continuously processing data, we can be worried about what we process. So, in the time of pandemia, there were thousands of informations, and our brain needs informations. It's like food for a brain. But we have many fake news. We have data we are overloaded by data. And these data are really different quality, good or bad. So it's not, we must process data, but these data are not good, like being good all the time. And what it causes, you see, we have brain which process data, weak data, bad data, and it causes activation of limbic system. So in isolated times, in many people, limbic system was highly activated, especially amygdala. Amygdala is the part of brain which is responsible for emotional reactions, for fear. And if amygdala is aroused all the time, if you do EEG scan for people, it even shines. So it means that we are overstimulated and overactivated, highly activated all the time. So we are continuously worried, and we do not have chance to make calm, to feel soothe and ease. And another thing connected with brain and connected with hardship of experience of isolation is fight or flight system. This is something we inherited by our ancestors. This is from evolution. This is system developed by evolution. So if you feel endangered, if you are jeopardized, you fight. So you have really, you have all energy magnetized in you and you struggle really hard, or you flight, so you escape, you put all energy in changing surrounding to be less hazardous for you. But what is in during the pandemic time? How you can fight with virus? You cannot punch it. You cannot fight it directly. You cannot even see it. But your whole body and every hormone in your body is ready to fight because of information which you get previously. And if you are so ready to fight, you must do something with these hormones, or fight or flight. But how you can flight from virus if you can't leave your flat, if you can't leave your place of living, or if you can't, if there is no part of a world which is safe. Everywhere on the world you feel unsafe and unsecure. So that's why it is very, very hard for us, because our brain and body is motivated to fight, but it's not possible to do it directly. And please remember that we perceive situation in a really imperfect way. So our mind is not like functioning like a video camera. What we record, we see as reality. We are only seeing a piece of picture. We are not seeing whole picture, but only some fragments. So it means that we are very easy. We have cognitive distortions. So you hear, you see, you read some information about COVID-19, about isolation, about how dangerous it is for us, and you create some reality on these informations, basing on these informations. So it is quite harmful for us because it's not whole picture and it's not whole story, but our brain constructed reality basing on that. And for example, like this common perception mistake is like availability heuristic. It means that if something is you see or you hear frequently, you remember it better. So if you have 5 friends and they are talking that they really are afraid of virus, they really are afraid of isolation, so you think, oh my God, everybody are afraid of virus and isolation. But probably there are also 5 people or even 50 people who are not so much afraid. But your brain only remember these people with who you've been talking to and with who you've been talking to last time. And so this can be quite this mechanism can cause our hardship in coping with isolation. And for example, we also our brain caught better the recent information. It is called recency effect. So if you, as you can see on this picture, if you have these confirmed cases of coronavirus deaths or whatever infections, so you caught these last informations. If they are pretty low, if these figures, these numbers are pretty low, you think, okay, everything is going well, I will go for holidays. But if you see these numbers very, very high, you think, oh my God, I can't go abroad, I can't do nothing. So, and this is also not putting to our brain the whole picture. You caught only last information. You do not analyze the virus dynamic. It requires time and it requires more and more reflection. And our brains are a little bit lazy, but we are more afraid of this information because of that laziness. And also, as human, we are changing. The society is changing. The conditions, outside conditions, are changing. And modern human is described has very specific mentality. It is described like the mentality of the right thumb. So the thumb you use to your remote control pilots, to your cell phone, mobile phone, smartphone. So you click by the thumb. What does it cost to our lives? The mentality of the right thumb is connected with preferences of our living and thinking about life. We prefer easy solutions over difficult solutions. We prefer simple information over complex. And we prefer fast solutions over slow. And if you see these preferences, how to cope with isolation, how to adapt to that if we are, easy lovers, simple lovers, and fast lovers. Isolation was quite permanent, was very complex, and it was not so easy to cope with. So our mentality is not constructed in modern way to cope with such dangerous situations. But my point and the point of this short lecture is not to, make you afraid of isolation, but make you aware of mechanism in our psyche, and also to think together about how to adapt to learning, working, and living in isolated times. So, how to adapt to changes which are our modern experience. And the first thing I would like to express the most is that the fear of isolation and the fear of a virus, the fear of sickness is an unique experience. And really thinking in that way really helps. It is not situation directly concentrated on my fate. It's not situation pointed on myself. This is situation, this is unique experience of everybody, and everybody are in some way afraid of that. So it's really good to stop thinking, to stop concentrating only on your experience, but start to see the wider picture. It calms our emotions down, and it helps us to cope with the situation. And really, believe me, and I hope that everybody knows that it's really okay to be afraid. Everybody can be afraid in that situation. That's okay. But there are some certain things we can do with our fear. And what I would like to show you also, there are many stress concepts, but for example, there is the theory of stress by Holmes and Ray, which is also of course criticized by some people, but it's not the point. This theory means that my stress, my fear, my experience of today's life, of my daily life, it's the result of 2 previous years of the stress of my life situation, which I experienced over these 2 years. It means that there are some people who will cope better in isolation, and there are some people who will really have hard time, not because of the virus itself or by the isolation itself, but because of their life situation. There are times we are really, tired, when we are really depressed or sad, and it's worth seeing the bigger context that our life is sometimes really, kicking our asses a little bit. And that's why I'm really having a hard time with isolation. It's additional stress. And, it's good not to have to put all responsibility on yourself. There are so many factors which cause that we are coping better or worse. It's good to have this wider picture. But please remember that when we feel afraid, when this amygdala is working, it's shining really, really bright, our mind, our brain is having something called tunnel thinking. So we only see the virus, we only see uncomfort of isolation, but we cannot see the bigger picture because we are so concentrated on this one topic. And you, everybody, you can help your brain, you can help your mind feeling better by, for example, positive affirmation. So by creating a list of positive things you experienced during isolation. Maybe when you start thinking about that, there are some outcomes of isolation. Maybe you spend more time at home, which you really like. Maybe you have more time for your kids, or maybe you gain some new ability, do some online course, or you start playing guitar. Everybody experience isolation differently, but let's try to help your brain to see bigger picture, wider picture, and let's make a list even of very, very small successes. It really helps to feel better. And please remember that every situation has a beginning and the end. Of course, we don't know when the pandemic will stop. We don't know when the isolation will stop, because it's sometimes dependent of our government. For example, we do not have influence on that. But all situations has beginnings and ends. Why I am expressing that? Because some sailors, explorers, people who really struggle with hard conditions, they use this mental technique to feel better when they have crisis. For example, there is a sailor, a female sailor, Joanna Pajkowska, who was the first Pole who sailed around the world alone without visiting ports. Really imagine, it's a giant success, and it's giant challenge. But she was struggling really hard. For example, she has really bad weather on the sea. There were really storms and hard time for her. And she repeated that what helps her to survive in this really hard time, it was repeating to herself that all situations has beginning and end, and all storm, all bad weather, or each thunder will suddenly stop, and finally will stop. So this is one thing. And another thing, what you can do for yourself is being a realistic optimist. So it means that you are, it's very good to have hope that everything will be okay. But it's not so profitable for us to think that, okay, today it's hard, but tomorrow everything will be fine. Because what will happen if tomorrow won't be so fine? So when you are really wishing something, and you think that it should be today, tomorrow, and it's not happening, our mood is decreasing, our mood is falling down, and we feel worse, not better. So it's really profitable for our psyche to be a realistic optimist. And for example, many people also struggling with very hard conditions are using the same technique. For example, James Stockdale, who was pilot commander during the Vietnam War, he was captivated, and he experienced really bad conditions and really hard time. He was being captured, being in prison in Vietnam from 1965 to 1973. And what does it mean? He was only one from his co-soldiers who survived this imprisonment. And what was why it happened? What was his strengths? Why it happened like that? He all the time he repeated that it was because of his aptitude, because of his thinking. He was hoping that he will be rescued, but he was not concentrated on that, on which day he will be rescued. It means that he was, it is something we can do during isolation. Isolation will finally stop, and it's good to believe that we will overcome these obstacles, we will overcome the virus, we will be healthy. But it's not good for us to believe that it will be in the next week. We don't know when it will be. It will be finally. But do not put these borders, these lines, because they provoke a little decrease of mood when it is not, fulfilled. And what is very good for us, this is the sense of control. In all situations in your life, it's really good to feel that you have influence on your surrounding. And how to do that? How to keep the sense of control when you're isolated at home, when the virus is everywhere, and you feel that your life is not really belonging to you. The first thing is use wisely the fight or flight system. I told you on the beginning that fight or flight system is it was created by our ancestors. It was created by evolution to help us survive, and it activates all body hormones. So if you have these body hormones, let's use them in different way. As I mentioned, you cannot punch the virus, but you can do simple physical activities even in your home. You can exercise in your home. And it's very, very important to, reduce this body hormone level, for example, by exercises and regular. It is, something you can control, really. It's up to you. And another thing, as we are talking about control, is planning your day. The picture you can see, it's a Polish polar station on the Spitsbergen. And why I'm showing you that? People who work in polar station, they are staying there, for example, for 1 year, and they are living in ICE conditions. They have, half of year totally dark, half of year totally sunshine all day round. So they are experiencing really hard time, really hard weather conditions, but they can control their daily plan. They can control when they do work, when they do their entertainment. And when they are planning really well, they feel empowered, and they feel that even if they are in hard conditions, hard nature surrounding, this is their choice and their control. Really, gaining this control is something really basic to feel good, to have positive emotions. So I really encourage you to do that. And it's good to know that even if the experience of isolation was really traumatic for you and was really, really hard, there is a phenomena called by psychologists like post-traumatic growth. So all hard situations can even make us stronger, can make us believe in ourselves more, and can even improve our different life spheres. So really, maybe I don't wish you, of course, these traumatic experiences, but even if you experience them, there is a great chance that you will grow after that. And for example, people who are, training to being Mars explorers, to being astronauts, and when they are having their missions in space, they also said that this isolation is very hard, but they have permanent positive effect on their well-being after finishing the flight, because they feel empowered. They struggled really hard and overcome so many hard situations. So their well-being, thanks to this stress and struggle, is now better, and they are even improving their mental health, experiencing improvement of this mental health. So there is also hope for us being isolated, that over time, from the different angle, from the different perspective, and really we will gain something for us, not only lose. And what I would like you, coming to the end, what I would like to remind you, that all situations, like for example this COVID isolation, are a kind of vaccine for us. It means that in our lives, we even if you don't like to hear that, in our lives we would experience a lot of hard situations. This is life. Life is not so easy for all the time, but all situations which you overcome and in which you found some positive aspects, it makes you stronger for next crisis, for next situation, for next isolation, for next pandemic. So it's really good to make this the list, to make summing up of isolation, of how you felt, what you done, and what you can done different in different situation, in different hard situation, because it makes us stronger for the next time, for the future. And because we are here, thanks to summer school, I live by the sea. Thanks to today we have, I would like only to remember that, pandemia and virus isolation, this is one thing, but the thing which is our permanent experience is, environmental crisis, climate crisis, and these are things which are with which we are struggling really hard all the time. So, and really, we need more energy and we need more action to make our planet still being really great place to live. And I believe that we can do it really. But please remember, please have please see the wider picture. Virus pandemia is only one thing, one piece of whole puzzle, and whole puzzle is all the world with all the problems we have and with all knowledge we can gain to overcome these problems. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I would really like to recommend you the next week presenters, the Leo Zielińska-Gibny, who will present you the topic modern education. Education has many faces, examples of non-formal education practices. So I really encourage you to be with us in the next week. I hope that I believe that this presentation will be really great and a really great experience for you. And of course, thank you very much. And you can contact with me on my university address. As I mentioned, I'm from University of Silesia. Everybody are welcome to write to me in all the questions. If you would like to read something which I am from the research, from the scientific research I'm doing, you can also go for ResearchGate webpage. But I received from Isabella 3 questions, and now I'm stopping the presentation. And I would really love to answer these 3 questions which I received. And if you have more questions, you can write it, and I would like to answer them. But the first question I received, it was, who has harder time in isolation, woman or man? And this is quite a tricky question, because I don't like to make this, separations, and I don't like to separate people on men and women. Of course, men and women has some differences, and this is something I do not deny. But men and women can have equally hard time during the isolation because of what I mentioned. So because of our life situation. So not being a man or woman determine our coping, but our life situation. So the thing that we are, these our life conditions. In which the moment in our life in which we are, this determine more our behavior and adaptation than being woman or man. And the next question which I received was, do you have any information on when to start worrying about ourselves while in isolation? Any hints what to observe? And this is question, a very important question. So thank you very much for this question. And there in psychology, when we are thinking about some pathological behavior, or when we are thinking about some pathological, like beginning of sickness or illness, there are some criteria, and I think that everybody can. These criteria can be useful for everybody. So the first thing is that when you feel, depressed, your mood is decreasing, and it's not one day when you feel like that. So it's for a longer time. Is the first thing you should start worrying about. So if your change in mood is maintaining for a longer time, this is first thing you should observe. The second thing is that when your behavior, your reactions are not any more adaptive, you also start being worried. What I mean by being adaptive, it means that you are, for example, fighting with people, you are, quarreling with people a lot, you're discussing, not listening to them, and you think, oh, come on, it's not really me. Why? And you're angry all the time. It's also the moment you should start thinking about your life situation if you are not overwhelmed, or if something not really good is happening in your life. So these are two things which really you should observe. And the third thing is, everybody has their own methods how to cope with stress, how to cope with hard situations. And we have many things which comfort us. For example, going walk, for example, talking to friends, and so on. And if these regular methods are not being enough, they are not soothing you, they are not helping you to feel better, you should really start worrying. You should really start thinking, okay, maybe it's time to, to pay better attention to my health, to my life. Maybe there are things I can do for myself to feel better. Because when it takes more time, it can be even a beginning of some sickness, of some problems, and it's really good to monitor ourselves. So I hope that this is an answer for your question. And the third question I received is how to prepare for the second wave of virus. And I believe that you have some answers on that question in my presentation. So, for example, keep your mind activated and occupied, but by the good news, but by realistic news based on good informations. Please be aware about this mechanism, this our mental mechanism, that we are not seeing all the picture. Let's concentrate on things you can have control on. So let's concentrate on making a plan, making a list of things you can do in the situation you are in. So the possibility to realize. And let's be a realistic optimist and believe that every situation, even very, very bad, finally will come to the end. So there are many things that you can do, like these are like mental exercises you can do, you can apply, and it really helps to reduce the stimulation of this amygdala part of your brain and of limbic system. And when we are more calm and reduced on the hormonal neuronal level, we really cope in our lives better. So thank you very much one more time. Thank you for listening, and I don't see another questions, so I will stop on that. As I mentioned, you can all the time write to me with all questions as you have, so you really feel invited to do that. Thank you, Isabella. Thank you. Today we have, and I live by the sea school, and of course academia, so the Polish Academia Institute, and aquarium. But because we are organized by many institutions within the aquarium. And one more time, I invite you for the next presentation. So modern education has many faces. Thank you. Bye, and see you Sunday.